Hello and welcome back to the Money Bear Podcast. I'm your host, Chloe Daniels, better known as Clover Money Coach on the internet. And today is a quick tip episode, and we're doing a little something different. Every once in a while, I want to kind of give back to you guys and take your money questions and do an episode on them. So that's what we're doing today. And this question that we're going to be covering comes from Maggie. Maggie, I hope that you find today's episode helpful. And yeah, we'll get into it. But before we do, y'all know I always do a little life update before we dive into the quick money tip. So her question, to give you kind of a perspective, and we're kind of just going to talk holistically about some of the things that I think she needs to do along with her husband, is her main question was, does it make sense to open a high yield savings account when you're in credit card debt? Should you pay off your debt first and then begin saving? Which is like a common question. We never know what our order of operations needs to be, it feels like. And everybody's order of operations can be a little bit different. So we will dive into that here in a minute. So in terms of life update, I don't really have anything exciting, guys. I am living a drama-free life lately. I have no updates. I kind of am like in this stage of life where I'm like putting my head down and getting a lot of work done, but I'm also having a really good time. So I guess we could say that's balance, right? So I have been spending a lot of my time going to jujitsu. I'm still trying to get some weight training in as well, but I hurt my knee about a week ago. And so I haven't been doing as much weight training or anything intense. So I'm just drilling at jujitsu right now. And beyond that, I'm just like, I feel like I have such a new appreciation for my life. And I'm just really happy to be here in San Diego. And I'm really happy to have my dog and my cat and my friends here. I've made some really good friends in San Diego so far. One that comes to mind, and I don't think she listens to the podcast, so this is like a wasted shout out, but I gotta shout out Ange has become a close friend really quickly. You know, when you just meet those people who you just like instantly connect with, I would say Ange and Dee are two of my closest friends here. And it's so nice to have friends who I like will do just dumb shit with, like, or just chill shit with, you know what I mean? Like when I was in Chicago, I used to have fam nights with my closest friend and her husband. We would all just hang out and watch a show, watch a movie. And like, you know, we didn't have to show up and like perform and be on, you know what I mean? And it feels like I've kind of had that instantly with some of the friends that I've had here. And I don't know if that's just like the San Diego vibe or what, but like both with Dee and Ange, it's like we have like show watch nights. We like hang out and make dinner together and play games and go for walks, and that stuff, like it just fills my heart so much. So I just kind of feel like all of my buttons or all of my cups are being filled, and it feels good. I guess the only one that's not being filled is obviously the love one, the romance one. But yeah, it's just been so nice to have friends who are available for that right now. You know, I think in Chicago, a lot of my friends have moved into a different stage of life, whether that's husbands and kids or moving and, you know, just like entering into a different stage where I'm like I'm in a different stage. I've been in a different stage. We're like living very different lives. And it's nice to have people here who are more available for those low stake hangs. So yeah, it's been filling my heart. I got to go on a camping trip this weekend. I was the honorary bi at a lesbian camping trip. And it was really cool to just like hang out with new people and chill by the beach in Encinitas. So I had a great time. I feel lucky to have friends who are willing to like bring me into their folds and like bring me into their communities as well. So I had a good time. And yeah, that's like kind of the only update. Besides that, I'm really just working on a few things here at Clobear headquarters. We are getting ready to launch another product, a very like affordable product that I think will help a lot of people. And I'm very excited. It's going to be like $27. So that's cool because we don't have anything like that available for folks right now. Obviously, we literally just have two ends of the spectrum, like free or like a $500 product or $1,000 product. So those are out of reach for some people. So I'm excited to have something else that is more affordable and gets people some tools that they need to kind of get started on their journey. So that's what I've been focusing on, is putting my head down and working. And yeah, it's been good. I love working. So that's the hard part, is like finding balance between work and friends, because I am always content to stay home and work. So Yeah, I'm still reading fairy books as well. I am on the last book of the Sarah J. Maas Crescent City, and then I'll be looking for some new books. And I really want to get some fantasy books from other like perspectives. I don't want to just read fairy books and fantasy books by white women. So I'm excited to get out there and find some other. Luckily, TikTok has been such a good resource for finding books because there's like a lot of like POC who are out there posting books that are written by a POC. So I'm excited to do that because I think that only reading books by like a white woman is probably just going to keep my worldview a little bit too small, even in the fantasy world. So if you guys have any recommendations for books on fantasy that are, maybe from a different perspective, I'd love to get your recommendations and I will share any that I have here as well. So, all right, let's move into the quick tip for the week, which is the question that we got for Maggie. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over Maggie's situation and I'll answer her question, but I'm also going to give her a few insights just in terms of what I think she might want to prioritize. Now, disclaimer here, big, scary disclaimer. I am not your financial advisor. I am not a financial advisor. I'm an educator. So I cannot tell you what to do. I can only give you my opinions and educate you. What you end up doing is up to you. Okay. So anything we're about to talk about is not financial advice. All right, friends. So let's go ahead and dive in. Question. Does it make sense to make a high yield savings account when you're in credit card debt, or should you pay off your debt first and then begin saving? I currently live with my husband and we've been married for about 2 years, and he struggles a lot with using credit cards as his emergency fund. The two of us are both self-employed, and for his company, he occasionally gets dividends, which normally goes to paying off credit card debt. I think he's around the $6,000 to $7,000 amount, and I'm personally about the $4,000 in debt. We do have student loans, but that hasn't kicked in yet. And he makes $40,000 a year and I make about $40,000 as well. We do have student loans, but those are still paused. So we haven't really been worrying about them as much. Each paycheck, we put about $500 each into paying off credit cards, but we are pretty paycheck to paycheck and are thinking of consolidating our debt into a lower interest rate loan if possible, and hopefully getting a Roth IRA account for each of us, as well as savings accounts to start getting our lives together a bit more. And last, we currently own a condo. My goal is to get out of credit card debt, create retirement accounts for us, create savings accounts where we have at least 10 to 15 saved, 15,000 saved. And I also want a savings account for vacations and fun things, as well as like $5,000. I'm assuming she means like the savings account will be 5,000. Our APR of our credit cards are pretty high. I feel like 21% is the average. I know we live pretty paycheck to paycheck. Like we're pretty good at spending everything we make, which we're working at getting better at. Together, our expenses is a mortgage and an HOA that comes down to about $1,400, which includes utilities, health and dental insurance, which is about $430. Student loans, they're putting $40 down, gym, $90, and probably around $70 of subscriptions a month. Car insurance is $100. Groceries is $600 per month. Gas for my car is $100 to $150 a month. I'm definitely forgetting some stuff, but we go out to eat quite a bit more than people, but we also don't really drink ever. So that's normally how we entertain ourselves. Been paying about $500 to $600 a month for credit card debt. Husband's income per month is $2,500 a month, whereas my income, which is pre-tax because I'm a contractor, is $2,400. Okay, friends. First, Maggie, thank you for sharing this. I appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness to trust me with this information. So I will not take that lightly. So first, I want to point out what you're doing well. That's amazing that you are. I'm assuming you are both young. I'm assuming you're both in your early to mid 20s because you mentioned that we have student loans, but that hasn't kicked in yet. So I'm assuming that either you're saying that it hasn't kicked in yet because of the forbearance or because you're like fresh out of college in those 6 months that you're like getting adjusted. You don't have to pay on them yet. I don't know for sure. I did message her to ask, but haven't heard back because I kind of messaged her last minute. So that's my fault. You also mentioned that you guys have only been married for 2 years. So I also am assuming that you're a little bit younger and you're really just starting out. So getting a condo at such a young age, I mean, that's amazing. Congratulations. And especially too, with it only being $1,400 a month between your utilities, your condo, like mortgage, and your homeowners or home association fees. I'm assuming the insurance as well. $1,400 is really low. So well done. That's amazing. Now, granted, I don't know what area you're living in. So entirely possible that you just live. Oh, it looks like you're in the Midwest. Okay. So that makes sense. You're in like a mid-sized city in the Midwest. So amazing. I mean, $1,400 for where you're living, I think is still pretty good, especially too when you're splitting it between the both of you. So well done. Now, I want to talk about a few things. So your initial question was, does it make sense to make a high yield savings account when you're in credit card debt? Yes, it does still make sense because there's no minimums, there's no fees for something like an Ally account. So ALLY, that's the one I would recommend to you, or any high yield savings account that is going to give you access to buckets and also doesn't have any fees or minimums. So Ally is my favorite. This is not sponsored. You can do whatever you want, but it's an easy one that I recommend. So yes, you're still going to want to do that because we want to start working on your guys' emergency fund like right now. Okay. So when I looked at your total income, which is about $4,900 a month. And then we're looking at right now, you have not been saving for your taxes for your 1099 income. We need to include that in our like monthly expenses. We need to treat that like a bill because essentially it is. You had mentioned that you're like, well, I don't really know how much to save for quarterly taxes. I would say the minimum to save is about 20% of your gross income. Okay. So let's say, or 20% of your net income. So if you have business expenses that are getting taken out of your gross income, whatever that leftover amount is, you could safely put away about 20% of that. So let's say maybe your expenses are like $400 a month top. So $2,400 a month is what you're currently bringing in. Let's say you have $400 a month in expenses. 20% of 2,000 means that you need to be saving about $400 a month in taxes. Okay. For taxes. The reason I wanted to say that first is because we need to look at how much money is left over each month for you guys to actually reach some of these goals. So if we're saving $400 a month for taxes, that puts us at having about $1,100 left over each month from the expenses that you shared with me. Okay. So we got to pause here and say, there are some things I don't know. I don't know how much your student loans are going to be when they get started up again. You didn't mention what the total amount is, but considering you guys are bringing home $2,500 a month each, I would assume you might qualify for some income-based repayment, which might not be a bad idea because $1,100 left over each month, which we're not even including what eating out expenses. I didn't see any cell phone expenses. We're not seeing student loans. Your cash flow is going to get like eaten away relatively quickly. So I would probably start looking at applying for income-based repayment plans for your student loans because those are getting started back in October. So the interest begins in September. And as I'm recording it, it's the end of June. So you've only got July and August and September to start saving or getting used to paying student loans again. So I would look into student loan repayment plans via income-based repayment plans. You should be able to go online and do that at studentaid.gov to see what you could qualify for if you haven't already done that, because we need to start including your student loans into these fixed expenses each month. Okay. You guys have only been married for 2 years. Well, in the 2 years that you've been married, student loans have been on pause, right? So this is going to be a whole new territory for both of you to navigate and make sure like, oh crap, what if all of a sudden that $1,100 left over each month becomes $650 left over each month? That's going to be a really big hit to you guys. Now, here's the good thing. That includes you paying $500 a month to your credit cards. So even if all of a sudden we have $500 in expenses of student loans, we still have that $600+ left over each month. Plus, we're putting that $500 on our credit cards each month. So that's another thing I wanted to highlight that you guys are doing a really good job on. So number one thing is, Maggie, you need to start putting away $400 a month for taxes. Okay. That needs to go into a separate bank account. So like the reason I recommended Ally is because Ally, you can do savings buckets. So you can transfer automatically that $400 a month into your Ally account and then put it into a bucket savings for taxes. So that way, we're not going to go into debt when taxes come around, or we're not going to have to go into a payment plan or something along those lines. Okay. So that's step number one. That leaves us $1,100 a month left over. Now, second thing that I'm recommending is go find out what your options are for student loans. It doesn't look like student loan forgiveness is happening anytime soon. So go check out, like, are we on income-based repayment so that we can get that payment down as low as possible? The reason I'm advocating for that is student loans are usually low interest rate. Now, they could be all the way up to like 7 or 8%. That's not as low as we like, but it's lower than the credit card debt. And paying off the credit card debt is a priority, as well as getting you guys to an emergency fund. Okay. So let me repeat that. Step 1, start putting $400 away for taxes each month. Step 2, figure out your student loan situation, see what that could be, because it's hard for us to make a plan without knowing what the numbers are going to be. We're going to work under the assumption right now that we have $1,100 left over each month to spend on other things, plus reach all of our savings goals. Now, my third thing is you need to figure out how much are you actually spending on eating out. So we spend a lot on eating out each month. Well, is $1,100 a month going to eating out? Because that's going to be key here. You guys have about $10,000 in credit card debt, and putting $500 a month on credit card debt is fine. However, if you guys are still using those credit cards, if you guys are going up in credit card debt, it's going to take a really long time to pay that off by only putting $500 a month on those credit cards. So that's what I need you to look at. Is there found money within your eating out budget? Because if we have $1,100 left over each month, that means you could be putting upwards of even potentially $1,000 on your credit card debt and be debt free from that credit card debt in 10 months. But if we're only putting 500, and if we're also going further into credit card debt each month because of our expenses, because we're using like an emergency fund, that's just going to make it really difficult for us to ever get out of that cycle. Now, speaking of the cycle, this is why I wanted to say that one of your questions was, should we just get a lower interest rate loan to cover our credit card debt? And the thing is, I don't know, and I don't get the sense from this blurb that you sent me that you guys have addressed the issues that got you into credit card debt in the first place. So here's the thing, is if you are like, yes, we have been on a budget for 6 months, we've successfully been sticking to it, we've been making these changes, we know exactly where every dollar goes, and you'd been doing that for 6 months, then I'd say, sure, you could do that. But the issue is, if you do that, you're going to clear up your credit cards, and then you're going to have a private loan. So you're going to be further in debt if you decide to keep using those credit cards, and that private loan is still like, you're just doubling your debt or doubling your debt potential. So the last thing we want to do is take a private loan to pay off our credit cards and then rack up our credit cards again. And that's unfortunately the cycle that so many people get into, because they take those private loans or personal loans before they address the habits that got them into credit card debt in the first place. Okay. So we want to do everything we can to make sure that's not the case. And if we go straight to taking a personal loan, have we really learned anything from it? I don't know. I don't know you personally, so I don't know what you guys have done yet. It seems like you're trying a few things and you're trying to like get on track. So you have to really know yourself, and you have to, know if you guys are really in a place to accept that responsibility, because that's a big responsibility, because it could end you up in a much worse situation than you already are. And I'm saying that like air quotes, you are not in a horrible situation. You guys are okay. Yes, $10,000 is a not insignificant amount of credit card debt, but like you can get out of that you're going to be all right. So that's what I would say about that personal loan is we want to make sure you guys are on a budget, that you're paying attention to where your money is going, that you know how much you're spending on eating out each month, because if you're not aware of those things, then it's going to make it really difficult for you to make any changes. And it's also going to set you up for potential really bad situation where you're going to go and double your debt. So I hope that helps answer your question there. Now, if you're coming back to me and saying, oh yeah, Chloe, we've been on a budget, we know, the reason I think you're probably not on a budget is because you told me, you spend a lot more on eating out, but you didn't tell me how much you're spending on eating out. Okay. So that's kind of why I'm like, I'm pretty sure you haven't been doing this yet. And this is where I'm going to plug our free guide, because we have tons and tons of tools in our free guide that will help you put together a budget and help you troubleshoot your budget. So grab that at moneyrightguide.com. Okay. Grab it at moneyrightguide.com. Now, with that being said, too, in the moneyrightguide.com, after you sign up, you also get a sequence of emails from me that provide further tips. And within that sequence of emails, there's a debt reduction calculator. Okay. So sign up, because that debt reduction calculator that you're going to get in the email will help you figure out, well, how long until I have this debt paid off? Because it's all going to depend on, well, what those student loan prices are, how much you're going to have to pay each month on that. Hopefully it's significantly less than the $1,100 you have left over a month, because then you could decide with whatever is left over after those student loans. Let's just say it's $500 after those student loans. That's what you have left over. Then comes the next point of, okay, what do we do with this extra $500 a month? Do we put it on our student loans? Do we put it on our credit card debt? Do we build an emergency fund with it? I am going to give an unpopular opinion. I think I'm making some assumptions here. Maggie, you look young. You look like you guys are both starting out. You have the home, which is fantastic. But if you are in your 20s, or even if you're in your 30s, you need to start investing. Okay. That does not mean if you have $500 left over each month and you still have credit card debt that you need to put all of it into investments. But could you guys do $100 each? Could you do $50 each out of that, so that you get into the habit of paying yourself first? Here's the thing. You guys are both working for yourselves, right? So in working for yourselves, you are responsible even more than everybody else for your retirement. You don't have a 401k like what maybe your peers have. So you've got to get that set up right now. Okay. Even if it's $100 a month, I don't care, but I want you to get into the habit of paying yourself first. Okay. So I'm going to assume that you're going to open up a Roth IRA. You're going to put in that $100 a month. You're going to buy some investments. Don't forget that part. And we do have a free investing class if you're like, once you get to this point, and that's at lazyinvestingclass.com. But now, let's say you do that $200 a month. That's fantastic. Because let's say you guys, I just want to give you a reason why I care. All right, I'm pulling up the compound interest calculator. So it's at investor.gov, compound interest calculator. Let's say you guys are 27. I don't know. I'm making a guess. That means you have 30 plus years, 35 years before you plan to retire. Okay. Let's say you guys start contributing $200 a month right now. Okay. And let's say you get an 8% average annual return. Well, in 35 years, just doing that $200 a month, which hopefully you guys will eventually be able to do more, but that could be $413,000 just from $200 a month. I know credit card debt is important. I know you need to pay that off too, but you are not going to save $413,000 in interest. Like, it's not going to happen unless it's on a home and the home has a high interest rate on it. Okay. So yes, we do want to prioritize paying off that credit card debt, but we do not want to skip saving for retirement, especially when you're so young. Your dollars are so much more powerful when you're young. Okay. So again, going back to this scenario, let's say you have $500 left over each month after our student loans kick back in. $200 going to both of our Roth IRAs. We're splitting it down the middle, 100 in his, 100 in yours. And then that means we have $300 a month left over to do whatever we want with. Personally, I would argue that most of that needs to go into an emergency fund. And I will give you an asterisk because I don't know your whole situation. Maybe you've got something else for an emergency fund. It doesn't sound like it, because it sounds like your husband's using his credit cards for an emergency fund. You guys are going to be in such a better place if you can start saving for an emergency fund right now. You're doing a good job of paying off your credit card debt. I want you to also be saving for a future emergency fund, because we do not want to go further into credit card debt because we have not been saving for an emergency fund. Okay. Yes. $500 a month. It's going to take a little while to pay off that credit card debt. But if you first get on a budget, first start understanding what is actually left over each month, where are our dollars going each month, and then you start making progress towards that emergency fund and that credit card debt, and you're investing as well, eventually you're going to have that emergency fund saved. I mean, in a year, you'll have $3,600 saved, right? So we're not going to be making the emergency fund the entire the entire time that you're paying off your credit card debt, you're not also going to be saving for an emergency fund. Likely you'll have your emergency fund goal a little bit sooner than you have your credit card paid off. So then you can dedicate that $300 to also paying off that emergency fund. But it's just so that we can prevent you from going further into credit card debt. But in order to do all of this, you have to have a spending plan. You have to understand where your money is going each month. And it doesn't have to be a zero-based budget where you're tracking everything. I do think that those are the easiest when you're a beginner because you're understanding the data, you're getting your hands into the data. And so that's why we've got those options included in that free guide at moneyrightguide.com. But all of this hinges on you guys getting to a place where you do understand where your money is going and you do have options. So that's the order of priorities that I would go in, because sure, if you're putting $500 a month on your credit card, that's great, but we still have no emergency fund. So what happens when an emergency comes along? We're going to have to use that line of credit again. And that's going to put us even further back. So that's what I would say is like, stop using the credit cards for a little while, get on a budget, prepare for your student loans, and like in the next couple of months to prepare for your student loans. So in July and August and September, that money that you know you're going to have to put into your student loans, save it, put it into that ally account, put it into an account so that you're treating it like right now, you're treating it like you are paying these student loans, because soon enough, you're going to have to. And that's going to be a big shock to the system. So if you can get started right now, when there's no danger of it hurting your credit, no danger of you missing a payment, put that money aside so you can practice that habit right now, because now you're going to have a lot less potentially left over each month to go towards your financial goals, but also to go towards like the eating out expenses, the travel expenses, the things that you guys might be doing, as well as the basic expenses that you sent me. Okay. So I want to recap because I know we covered a lot of things. Number one, Maggie, you got to put $400 a month away for your taxes. Okay. Number two, we need to figure out what's going to happen with our student loans. So going through the income-based repayment plan, figuring out, okay, what are my new student loans payments going to be so that I can know if I can afford it. So I can know if I do need to apply for the income-based repayment plan. Either way, I would suggest applying for income-based repayment, assuming since they've been on pause that your student loans are federal. Then number three, actually, I'm going to change the order. So number three, we're going to, whatever that amount is, whatever your student loan amount is that's going to be starting in October, I want you to start saving that now. Every month, I want you to put it away. I want you to start practicing right now, okay? And put that into a high yield savings account. Make a bucket for it. Okay. Number four, with the leftover money you have a month, assuming it's like $500, start doing something into a Roth IRA for each of you, but do not forget to invest that money. If you're like, I don't know what to invest in, we have episodes on the podcast about what to invest in. We have videos on the YouTube channel about what you can consider investing in. And we have a free class at lazyinvestingclass.com. Okay. That's going to set you up. Like, you will not regret this part, I promise. And then number five, I mean, you won't regret any of this. Number five, we need to start building that emergency fund. Okay. We got to get ourselves out of the cycle. And the only way we can do that is with an emergency fund. All right. And then once you've done all of that and you've been on a budget, so I guess that's number six, we need to get on a budget. Once you have done all of that and you've done it for 6 months, then you can look at potentially refinancing your credit card debt to get it down to a lower interest rate. But we want you to do that confidently. We want you to be like, you know what? I've been budgeting and paying off my debt, and I've been, making sure that I'm on track. I'm doing the right things. I know where my money goes. And now I'm ready for a lower interest rate debt. Okay. Just because we don't want to put you into a situation where you're going to go further into debt. I know I've repeated myself a million times by saying that, but it's that important. So I'm not going to tell you to stop eating out. I'm not going to tell you to not do any of those things. You can do those things, but you have to understand the trade-offs you are making. So that's why I want you to go in and really look at the last 30 days of your guys' spending, the last 90 days if you're feeling adventurous, to really understand where is my money actually going. Because you may say like, yeah, we're spending a lot of money on eating out, but what if it's a lot more than you even realize? Or what if you see like, wow, we're spending more on this than we are on our financial goals. Are we comfortable with that? Do we want to continue that? Is that reasonable for us? And if the answer is no, then we need to kind of reallocate. We got to look at it and say, well, what do we want to do with this money? And I kind of gave you a roadmap here. I gave you the blueprint of what I think you need to do, But of course, you have to do that in a way that is sustainable for you. I'm not going to say stop eating out until you're debt free. No, that's unreasonable. I know you're going to eat out. It's okay. It's just all about figuring out how to do it in a way that you get what you need, you get the joy, you get the entertainment. You're like, this is a form of our entertainment. Great. You're also in the southern Midwest. Got some hiking out there. You got some free opportunities too. What about making a really delicious meal at home or practicing your cooking skills, things like that. So it's like all about getting creative. But if you're telling me like, no, this has to stay in the budget. I have to be able to spend $300, $400, $500 a month on eating out. That is fine. But you have to look at your budget and say, this is what I'm trading off for this. Okay. So that's why the values-based budget, the zero-based budget, they're so important. And they're just going to give you more data to make better decisions for you, for whatever that is for you. So I hope that helps. I hope you didn't feel judged at any point. I'm not judging you. I think you guys are doing some really good things. The fact that you're consistently putting money on your credit cards every month is fantastic. The fact that you guys are homeowners, which is what at a young age from your Instagram account, you're doing a good job. So we're just going to make a few tweaks to do even better and to feel like, okay, I got a handle on this. Like I'm not feeling stressed. I don't feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck anymore. All right. Sending you a big hug, big love. I appreciate you guys. And I appreciate you giving me your money questions because, yeah, it means a lot to me that you trust me with that information. And I hope that helped. So, Maggie, I appreciate you. All right, we are going to do another review giveaway. So we just started. This is like our 1-year anniversary of the Clo Bear, like the Money Bear. So I'm going to talk more about that in the next episode, or I guess no, I'm going to talk about that in the episode earlier this week because I haven't recorded it yet, but you guys probably already heard it. So in year 2 of the Money Bear, I want to, one, thank you all for listening. It's been a really exciting year and it's been really fun. But 2, I also want to thank the people who are leaving reviews. So if you would like to be entered to win a free gift from Clo Bear, leave us a review because you might get shout out. So today we are going to give a free Lazy Investors course to Bama Lee. So Bama Lee left us a 5-star review. Thank you so much. The title is Binging. Love this podcast. I've been binging from the start. Easily digestible finance tips. So Bama Lee, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And we are honestly so stoked that you are enjoying this show. To thank you for your review as well as your dedication to the show, we will be gifting you the Lazy Investors course, which is a $990 value. So email us at chloe@clobear.com. Just tell us what was the date that you left the review. That'll be the secret. And we're super stoked and can't wait to meet you inside of the Lazy Investors community. So appreciate you, excited, and I really hope you guys all enjoyed today's episode. So if you want to be entered to win the Lazy Investors course or the Lazy Money Masters or our free wealth building tool, or not our free wealth building tool, it's the tool we're about to launch, be sure to leave us a review because you might be winning. All right, friends, appreciate you all, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Money Bear podcast. If you've made it this far, do us a favor, take 2 seconds, rate, review, and subscribe. It seriously means the world to me. And if you just take a sec to do that, I will appreciate you endlessly. And if you do, let me know on Instagram and I'll thank you personally. So got that. And of course, since we were talking about anything financial on this show, please note that nothing on this show is intended as financial advice. I don't know you, unfortunately, and because of that, I cannot tell you what to do with your money. You got to work with a financial professional who knows your situation, who is preferably a fiduciary, and keep in mind that everything that we talk about on this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It's all my opinion. So there's that. If you want to see our full terms and conditions, head on over to the show notes. And while you're there, we've got free resources for you to get started on your money journey down in the show notes as well, including a free guide to help you with your budgeting templates and budgeting tutorials and investing 101, understanding the different accounts that are out there. All that good stuff is inside of my free guide, which is also available at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. And if you're ready to take our relationship to the next level, I am also hosting hosting a monthly investing class. And that investing class, you can find the times we're offering it this month at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/webinar. That link is in the show notes as well. And that's where you have the chance to meet me live and ask those money questions live. It's a good time. We've had over 20,000 people as of recording this join or register. And yeah, it's always nice to meet you guys. So I hope to see you there. Again, all that is available down in the show notes. So thank you again for coming and listening. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.